Guys, if you want to drop any question, we can go live for 5, 6 hours, I think. Okay, it's right. just bring us a couple of beers, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what? I especially didn't have too many beers today because I knew I'd, I knew I'd forget. Anyone that knows me knows my memory is awful, terrible memory. And it goes back. You write everything down, jot it all down. I'm very lucky. I don't need to write much down. I have a best boy. He's probably the best in the industry, Lee Eldred. And anything I need, I radio. He writes it down. That's the life of a gaffer, I guess. I'm very lucky. It's your crew around you that make it light work and more of a pleasure and easier. And he's my notepad. He listens and he writes it down, and he's my backbone, or he's our backbone on the crew. So we're very lucky. But yeah, my memory is awful. So some of these answers, may not be exactly how it happened, but they're pretty close, I think. Where were we? We're at the Grand Palais. I could talk all night because it was, we were very lucky. We had a company called Novelty Rigging. They work at the Grand Palais, and they knew how to construct truss span sets to bridge or to span the weight of our rigs across the roof of the Grand Palais. And not only that, Stunts had equipment hanging from the Grand Palais roof. We had equipment, art department. It was a whole, that was a whole collaboration of filmmakers at their peak coming together to achieve something that was really quite unachievable, and a fantastic result as well. I don't think it was shown in the movie enough. I really don't. I was disappointed. And that leads on to the question that one of the viewers has said, what do you think about the work once it's finished? I guess the first time you go to watch it in the cinema, I just watch the movie. I try not to think about it at all. I always go a couple of times at least. The second time, maybe I'll go alone. Sometimes if I'm working away, I'll go to the cinema in the evenings. And you can sit, and then when you're on your own, you can think about the movie. And like I say, the Grand Palais, I was disappointed with the Mission Impossible 6 was a great movie. The story was great. The theme, the style, Rob Hardy's style of lighting was definitely imprinted very well on the movie. But the Grand Palais scene, for the value of it, the amount it cost to shoot there, and the amount of crew and equipment, and it just didn't feature enough in the movie. And that's when at times you can sit and watch a movie and feel a little bit sad about certain things. You can also sit and watch a movie and pick holes in a lot of the work that you've done. Nobody's perfect. There's always going to be little bits that were maybe not lit as well. You didn't have enough time. Maybe something went wrong on the night. Nothing ever, sometimes you have problems when you're shooting. You have to overcome the problems, and you have to overcome them without anyone really knowing, unless it's a major issue. You've got to try and keep that shoot going. And a lot of gaffers and crews will know what I'm talking about. You'll have you'll have some equipment that's tripping out, or you'll have some lights that are malfunctioning, or something happen maybe with the lighting control, or if you're transmitting wirelessly, somebody be stepping all over your 2.4 gig channel, and things can happen on shoots, and it's the way you deal with them, the way you keep the shoot going without stirring it up too much. It's very rare that you go to the first AD and say, we've got a serious problem here. We're going to have to stop shooting, unless it's a safety element, of course, safety first. Of course, if something's tripping out or something's burning, that's different. We do get things overheat. But it's the way your crew deals with the situation that always fascinates me. And the way you see them click into the way they react when there's a situation, you can almost take a step back and breathe and watch them deal with an issue, knowing full well that they're going to figure it out. It's just a matter of time. And when they do figure it out, you'll be back up and running. And it's the way you hide that and keep that going. I think DPs don't need to hear about those situations. They don't want to know. They've got enough going on, and directors certainly don't need to know that you're having a terrible evening. You know, the rain's torrential and things are tripping out, and when things trip out, they're tripping out for a reason. You shouldn't be just resetting lights till you found the fault, because it's there to protect people's lives. RCDs are there to protect people's lives, and indeed have protected people's lives. So it's got to be done. It's got to be calculated. It's got to be. That's why you need crews with electrical knowledge. That when the ship's sinking, they can bail you out, and they certainly do that. And they've done it many times for me. That's for sure. Yeah. So going to the cinema, you know, the first time I'll enjoy the movie and just watch it for what it is. I think you have to do that. The second time, maybe I'm a little bit more critical. But not too much, you know. At the end of the day, it's just entertainment. There's nothing right or wrong about any movie. I like action movies. I'm from the era of the Back to the Futures and the Goonies, and just fantastic movies that we all watched as kids growing up, with Bob Zemeckis, you know, showing us all how it's done. I'm very lucky to have worked with him, you know. So that was a pinch yourself moment, working with Robert and Don Burgess. So yeah, I think we'll probably be a bit critical going to the movies, but at the end of the day, what's a movie? It's just a movie. It's there to entertain, and if it does that, then it's done its job, I guess.
I found a couple of stuff. I remember this crane.
That was a bizarre crane. That was we shot Secret Life of Twins and Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah.
It was a TV show, and with Brendan McGinty, DP, who I worked with a lot. And it was this strange little project. It was a lovely project, but it was a strange little shot, and the crane literally goes 180 degrees in an arc. And then they cut it and do it again, so it looks like it's doing a 360. But it was an old contraption that had a big spring and a big clunky handle, and you know, it almost didn't look safe, but it was extremely safe. We used it, and the result's quite good. There's my baby generators there. Wonderful. That's Millwall football ground. Yeah, there's some cracking. You know, going back over these. Nice moments, it really is. That's early morning, striking up the lights. That was Blenheim Palace round the back. You remember these very well. That was in Morocco. There's one of our Land Rover generators. That was a Hurricane plane that we shot, that was dug up in India and hand-built, reconstructed back in the UK by a crazy pilot whose wife flew around the world. She was an amazing pilot as well. I think they then sold that plane on. Go back to that. That, let me tell you, was the... I'm
searching also the Don Burgess side.
States, but we made those for Sense8 with German Gaffer Albrecht Silberberger, friend of mine. We needed to make these for Sense8, and he left me alone, and I sort of put them on a bit of foam board, Corex, with double-sided tape and whatnot. It was a bit of a Heath Robinson, but it was the earliest form of a light mat. Now you can buy them all nicely Velcroed with light tools and DOP choice fittings and whatnot, with high spec LED. Back then it was very raw format, but yeah, that was the earliest. I think I should get royalties on light mats. Mike would be pleased with that. That was in St. Paul's. That was one of the proudest moments. Not many people get to light St. Paul's Cathedral. You know, we lit it with balloons, as you can see. Loads of 5Ks bounced into the ceiling from the triforiums, and mole beams on each of the quadrants up about 80 or 90 feet up. We had mole beams and Wendy lights on all the quadrants. That was Mission Impossible for a scene, very short scene, but The rig and crew there done an amazing job. They only had, that was another, you know, it seems you've only, you know, some of these locations, you don't get access for as much time as you would generally like. And some of these were just 2-day rigs. You know, that's 3 or 4 generators there and cabling all up the outside of the building, through the quirky little windings of the cathedral, craning lights up onto the roofs. It's a big number. That's the back of the boat. That, oh, jumping through there. See, people think they're Asteratubes. They were Kino tubes gelled with director Michael Lindsay and again Brendan McGinty. These are the cars. There, go back. That's the Don Burgess line.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Finally, I found them.
That came off a hotel in Watford, a very well-known hotel in Watford, and it's still missing to this day. And if they're watching, I'm sorry, but we needed to make the movie. And Don Burgess, I'm sure, tells the story better than. There it is. Oh, don't shoot. Yeah, I took it off the wall in the hotel. It's just such a nice diffusion, and we put LED, bicolor LED with a, don't know what that last one was, bicolor LED with a wireless receiver, battery pack on the back, goes on top of the camera, just above the focus horns, and you know, Dimmer Dan Walters has got full control over that, and we could just tweak that just subtly for an highlight or a little bit of fill, just as and when we need it. And I think Don was quite pleased with that. Was version 4. We got there on version 4, and he kind of said it was the best one he's had from a gaffer. But I think, you know, he's probably doing the same now wherever he is in the world. But that's a nice way of, you know, making friends with a DP, I guess. I think doing that to his gaffers kind of breaks the ice. There it is, yeah, the Don Burgess highlight.
I found it.
You did, yeah.
There's another question pinned. How about TC's mask with the light in when he jumped from the plane? Difficult.
I see who that's from. That's from Brinley. He's he used to work with us, Brinley. One of the nicest electricians you'll ever meet. And it's a shame he doesn't work with us anymore, but he went on to much bigger and better things. That I can answer that. The story behind the lights, we sat in a production meeting, and you know, the meetings are probably 30 or 40 people once you've got the full HOD departments, and you're sitting around a huge table, and sometimes you're broadcasting over to America, and sometimes Tom Cruise is in on the meetings, and we're talking, they're talking about a mask, and he wants lights in it. Tom wants lights, and he wants to be able to have diffused lights so he doesn't look lit so much, you know, so he's got some highlights and detail so we can read him against the bright sky. And they're discussing the lights, but nobody's discussing the safety aspect. And I sat in the meeting thinking, okay, we're at 25,000 feet in an unpressurized aeroplane. We're going to have lights in a tight mask against Tom's face. He's breathing pure oxygen, as you would have to above 12,000 feet. He's jumping at 25,000 feet into the night sky. And we're going to put LED lights in a mask that, to me, I don't know if an LED has ever failed or ignited. And if it does, what would be the response of a flame and the fuel and the oxygen on Tom's face? And I'm the gaffer, and I'm sitting in the meeting, and the prop model maker's talking about how wonderfully he could outfit the LEDs in. And I just stopped the meeting. I said, listen, guys, before we go any further, let's talk about the safety of doing this and how we're going to test this. And it has to be tested. And it has to be tested by a scientific laboratory, not just me putting 50 volts through the LED to see if we can make one ignite. We've got to test them to see what only happens if they do ignite. What's the, you know, what's the risk assessment? And, you know, we moved on from that in the meeting. The next I heard, somebody had tested the lights, and I've called another meeting. I said, look, you know, these lights haven't been tested properly, in my opinion. So then they sent it off to this military laboratory that then tested the LEDs with pure oxygen to destruction, and, you know, got a certificate to say absolutely, totally what's the word? Intrimestic, I think it is, or intrinsically safe, I believe the word is. And we got a certificate that cost probably $75,000 to prove that they were safe and worth every penny, you know. And if it was a crew member wearing the same mask, equally, I would defended it the same way and said, let's test them properly. You know, it wasn't just because it was TC, but therefore, you know, where do you put a value on safety? You can't, can you? So therefore, we spent, you know, the best money ever spent, in my opinion, on these LED lights. And in the movie, they're there. You can read his face, his cheekbones. It's not the most flattering light because the LEDs are right in the helmet, and there's only so much diffusion we could model in there. The prop guys did do it. You know, the prop modeler did do an amazing job on that, and it was very safe. Cut to over the skies in Abu Dhabi for the first flight that I went on. You breathe, you sit on the ground in a military aircraft, the C-17 Arab Emirates C-17 Globemaster, and you breathe pure oxygen for an hour on the ground, just out of a tank, because you're going to be unpressurized on the flight. And that plane then takes off, climbs very steeply, gets overhead. The doors open. It's pitch black outside. I switch their lights on. I have a lighting effect to do on the plane where the red lights flash that was all pre-planned. And then the madness behind it, and I still pinch myself at this moment, seeing Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise do their scene, the amazing photographers, you know, doing the shots, and then Henry ducks out, and they leap out the back of the plane into the total dark abyss over a desert where there's no lights anyway. It just still, to me, just doesn't seem, you know, even possible for anyone to do that. And immediately after that, the tail closes, and you dive back down and you land. And then, you know, he done that about 100 times. I mean, I done it, I think, once or, you know, twice maximum, and it was just too much for me. We then made landing lights for a drop zone where they were all going to land at night so they can see. So there's a responsibility as a gaffer. You go to Abu Dhabi, all you're in charge of is these lights and a little bit of lighting on the plane. But then somebody says, well, when he's going to land, or all the camera crew and everyone land, the parachutes, how are they going to see? We've got to make landing lights. So then now you're responsible for doing a landing light cross formation of, I think we had 2 5Ks, that's all we had, and a couple of small generators. Now imagine the responsibility of those lights going out mid-jump, you know, and how you deal with that. Of course, simple format, get several generators that are ready to back each other up. If lights went out, you can swap over, double up on the lights in case one fails. You can then quickly swap over. Always cover yourself. But things like that, you go out unprepared and you've got to react to. And that's just, you know, one of the simplest things that a gaffer would have as part of his responsibilities, or her responsibilities. But going back to those lights, you know, they had sleepless nights written all over those for me for a good couple of weeks until we got the certificate to say they were safe. I think I saw in his last movie, he's got something similar in the lights. Anyway.
You are on the front of responsibilities in
Yes,
the movie.
But you're not alone. You're not alone. You've got a production team to back you up. You've got, like we said, the relationship with the other key department heads, you know, special effects, props, wardrobe, makeup, grips. You're a team. So I think going in knowing you've got a team, you can then share some of that responsibility. And I think it's important to do that. And then my team that work for me, they certainly get the burden of the responsibility. That's then, as quickly as possible, sort of handed down throughout the real knowledge. That's where the real work happens, you know, with the, very lucky, as I said, to have that sort of team.
I have a personal question. How is it to manage your work long time out of home with your family? How is it to manage this?
Yeah, you know, I'm blessed. From day one, I met Tara, and I was working on a movie. And so she kind of understood at that early stage what it is to make movies and this sort of hours, at least, that we were working back then, cut forward 20 years, and she's still putting up with it. I don't know how. We've got 2 wonderful kids, Dylan and Harriet. Maybe they're watching, I don't know. If they are, of course. But I don't know. It's not easy. The balance is never right. I don't think film productions take into account enough the mental health of the crew working away. It's starting to change a little bit, but the pressure on any crew member to work away from their family, you know, if you're working the other side of the world, you can't even call them, because when you wrap, they're in bed, and when, you know, they're up, you're crashing out. Or if you're working nights. And I don't think enough is being done to protect the families of crew members. I've been saying that for a while, but it's not easy. You've got to have an understanding family. You're never going to get the balance right unless you stay at home and just do commercials, and even that can be tough. I don't think there is a balance, and I don't think we've quite got that side of the industry right yet. And I think you can get it right. You know, you don't have to work 15-hour days. And maybe one of the things that might come out of this COVID situation is that we go back to making films the old ways. You know, you can do a 10-hour day. It used to be 8 hours. Why is it now 12? Let's make sure it's 10 hours. Let's get home to our families. Let's have a longer approach at making a movie with let's get scripts that we can work off that are achievable, that fit the budgets. Let's just not turn up with no script and no guidance on what we're meant to be doing, and then expect that to fit into a budget, because I can tell you that doesn't work. I've been on the receiving end of that. It needs careful planning, and people used to plan films so much better. And I think to answer your question, to get the relationship balance better, less hours. Let's not work, you know, 7 6-day weeks. If you work a 6-day week, the rigging crew have to work 7 days. It's as simple as that. There's no way around it, because they have to work when you're not there. So you're on a 6-day week. Somebody's got to come in on the 7th day and tidy up if you're on nights or you're in a big location, and then they have to start again on the Monday. So if you do a 5-day week, at least the maximum you really need to do is 6 days for the rigging crews. I think, you know, less hours is definitely achievable, but you've got to be calculated, and you've got to be planning much more in advance with a solid script that's already been budgeted, that you know fits the budget. And then if you're gonna go off track a little bit, as movies do, you've got a contingency pot for that, as always. But I don't think it's fair on the families, and I don't think it's something that I want to do forever. I've thought about it a lot recently, but at the moment, it's the way we pay our bills, and a lot of our friends that I'm lucky enough to work with, it's the way they pay their bills. Could I go back to working on a building site and then come home at 5 p.m. every night and have the weekends off? And, you know, maybe not. I don't think that's the balance for us either. I don't think the family would, you know, I think we'd all suffer a bit with that one as well. So there's got to be a better balance. I'm not sure where that is just yet, but, you know, in the next few years, we're going to probably find that the way we're going to start working in a different manner with the new COVID kind of guidelines. I think that's one thing positive that may come out of this.
I read a couple of quotes about Tara I pinned also one.
Which one?
Yeah. I removed just now a couple of quotes about Tara. There's an interesting question, and I want to hear from you if you ever thought about this. Does a good gaffer make a good cinematographer? Do you have ever thought about this?
I think I've thought about it. I don't think it's a job that I thought about it. I'm not sure if it's a job that I would want. I think straight away you'd go from 20 years experience working your way up to become, you know, a feature film gaffer, which I think a lot of people aspire to be, to becoming a cinematographer that's starting at the bottom again. I don't think you'd have any right to leapfrog as a gaffer to a cinematographer on a movie, you've got to find your own way of working, your own style. You've got to have your own palette, I guess. You've got to create your own palette and your own paintings, and I think you've got to do that. You've got to start again at the bottom on some of the smaller projects and work up. So for me, possibly not now, but some gaffers have done it, and they've done it very well. But I'm not sure how. Listen, as a gaffer, you're going to definitely work with more DPs than any other. You know, you're going to have a conduit to directors of photography and the way they light and the style they light. You're going to have such a broad mind on lighting and the ways of rigging lights and different styles of light that it would lead itself well into lighting, without doubt. I could go and light as a lighting cameraman, call it, and I think quite competently. But do I have the natural talent for a vision of a shot and the concept of it and how to operate that shot and compose? I take photos on Instagram, I look at them all and think there's still no spark to them. And I think a good cinematographer naturally has a spark where they can visualize it and then compose the shots in their mind. And then not only do that, then they can relay that to the key grip and the gaffer and the art directors and the production designers, and they can collaborate to create. And importantly, with the director, of course, and they can paint those pictures. I don't know if that's the gaffer's job. It's certainly not the job that I want at the moment. And I think the gaffer's job is far too much. You got to remember, as a gaffer, you start on a film, you could spend 3 weeks just inputting numbers into a budget, breaking down the script, planning the labor, the amount of labor that goes into these movies, and who's going to be where, and doubling over with crew, and what sort of extra dailies you're going to need for each part of these scenes. And you've got to create a number, because the accountants need to see a number. That's the first thing you start doing, whilst collaborating with the director of photography about the style. And then you're talking to the director and the producers about money concerns. And, it's a much bigger thing than, I think once you've got to where you can handle all those elements, stepping back, it's not a step back, but you'd have to go learn your craft again as a cinematographer. And I think maybe a gaffer should stay, where their knowledge is, unless they're very talented at taking photography. And I think some gaffers just think maybe, they can do this and then jump into cinematography. It's two different, ways of working. They go well together, but then they're not the same, they're not the same position.
Yeah, there's a question about the specific scene about the Grand Palais scene in Mission Impossible. How was it difficult to shoot in that location, and the preparation, the execution?
Well, we've touched a bit on that. The planning behind it, as I said, was second to none, even down to as much as all our lights were pre-programmed and numbered before they even left from London to head to Paris. That takes an immense amount of work. We had CAD drawings, of which we then done our own concepts of lighting, truss rigs and lights in a 3D CAD format on Vectorworks. And then everything was pre-programmed, pre-visualized, and then loaded onto a truck and sent down to France. We then, rigged it within the 2 days, or not, I say the royal we, it was the team that done it. Gary Owen and gang, and Gregory and Dan Walters and all the gang, they were fantastic in rigging that. And then I guess it was just down to the planning. I lost the question. Where did we start with that question? Sorry, my memory. What was the initial question? Because I went off of it.
Now I didn't read again, because I pinned another one.
It was about the Grand Palais. I mean, the Grand Palais was a monstrous, very unachievable, but it was the first up. We were all quite nervous on the movie because it was the first interior we shot. We had some luck, you know, down there. We had a great French crew, which, you know, was second to none. And we had an amazing rigging team from Novelty Rigging that helped us get everything up in the air. I think once you've got that relationship built, which took I went to the Grand Palais 8 times to recce it, to scout, before we even threw a cable in there. So, you know, and I took the desk op, I took the rigging gaffer, I took the French rigging gaffer, and I took the French gaffer, and I took the riggers, and we, you know, by the time we came to put the cable in there, we knew exactly what we were doing, down to the length of the cable, down to the distribution, down to the, you know, the connecting of the, because it was all house power. They had, I think they had 4 megawatt of power at the Grand Palais that we can use. They have massive events in there and massive exhibitions, and so they're very geared up for that. So we used local power, all of which had to be tested and certified. But we knew what we were doing before we took a step in there. And I think that's credit to all the team for the pre-planning. And I think you can't ever do enough planning. Anyone that doesn't give you enough prep time, you're going to fall flat on your face. You've got to fight for that prep time so you can be ready when it comes to making the move and doing the rigs.
Okay, there's a guy that also in the first live asked, how do you see a gaffer's position and this crew changing in the future with all the lights becoming LEDs, lower power usage and wireless controlling to a phone? You can read also yourself.
Changing in the future, I think it's getting much harder, of course. Everything is now LED or going that way. Some of the new technology is going to replace some of the HMI lights. I've seen at the expos some amazing new Cineo lights that without doubt are going to replace, you know, the old tungsten 5Ks and 10Ks, bi-color LEDs that have that output even of a 12K or a 9K HMI. I think controlling that, how do I see it? You're still going to have to plan it. You're still going to have to rig the lights in the same way. They've still got to be put in the same positions. I think now you need more crew because you've got a lot more data control going into a set. It's no good just having one desktop rigging with the rigging crew. He or she now needs data wranglers that can create the network in the sets. You still need the rigging crew to run in the cables for some of the larger lamps and control over the practicals. I think the cables still have to be run safe up and over the gantries. You still need the riggers. I don't see it getting any easier. In fact, we discussed this a little bit in the past. I think it's getting harder, and the amount of responsibility that's put on the electricians, lighting techs now is indeed, it's much more layers of skill they need. You know, they need to be able to program lights, number lights, change patches. They need to be able to operate all the new technology. And let me tell you, every week there's a new LED light coming out that, you know, a DP may want to use. You've got to be up to date and up to, you know, they need, the desktops need to know how to pixel map everything now. They need full lighting control. The gaffers have to have the ability to learn how to use those new technologies, because, you know, an LED light in its rawest format is not a particularly nice light. You've still got to model that light and use it, and some of the softer ones are harder to control. It's just we're just learning now every day as the new technology comes along. But it feels to me is you still need big machines to rig lamps on if you're exterior. You still need the, you know, the lighting trucks. Maybe the generators may get a bit smaller. I hope so. And the power consumption gets reduced. We all want to strive for a more environmentally friendly world, but until the DPs are competent enough to use these new technologies, then, you know, some are still going to fall back on their knowledge of using some of the heavier bigger, more power-hungry lamps. I think it's not really going to change the job physically for the crew or with the amount of crew, but it's definitely going to change their knowledge and way of working. And I know, some of our team, they go on courses, they're keeping up to date, they go to lighting exhibitions. It's part of their job now. And I don't want to say it, but I don't think they get paid well enough for what they do and the amount of commitment they put in to these movies now. But it's changing, without doubt. It's changing, but it's changing, and we're all trying to keep up with it. It's not easy, that's for sure.
There's another one interesting question related to the technology. How do you see the coming future of lighting with the virtual reality shooting technology and increasingly the 3D scenes? I don't know if you ever used for your work the software of the matte cinetracer.
I've seen cinetracer. I was in touch with the fella to see if it was something I would. It's not something that I'm ready to use yet. I know a lot of people are. It's still in its game format. I think something more like Cinema 4D or Vectorworks for me is a better tool. I've been using that a lot recently in designing some of the set layouts for the film that we're currently meant to be working on. Cinetracer is still in its early format, but the light rendering on it seems second to none. You watch some of the designs that have been done on it, and they're absolutely fantastic. They're kind of, it's like the real world, but I think more importantly things. Onto the 360 world of maybe video screens. And I know I've been chatting to a colleague in America recently who's shooting the Star Wars spin-off, and they're using a 360 virtual world, and they call it the Volume, and it's a 360-degree video wall system that's got a roof on it that's LED. It's all completely visual effects controlled, and they can paint any sort of background plate that they want onto that and track that with the scene and shoot as if they're on location. I think it's like something completely new to me, and I think that's something to keep a very close eye on. I think DP Greg Fraser had a lot to do with that in its initial setup and concepts, and he's the top end of LED technology, and he embraces it and researches it. I'm lucky enough to have worked with him on Rogue One, or alongside him. We done second unit, Fraser Taggart and myself. But I think maybe that's the world of the way it could end up leading towards a little bit. I mean, you can put a set inside the Volume, paint any background, and you can actually shoot off the pixels. I don't know if they're 2mm pixels or what they are, but it's a very finite wall of LED, and that's something I think will change the way we work a little bit, albeit it's going to be extremely expensive to do that for a long time. But maybe with the new current way of working and the COVID, people are suggesting that it's safer not to go on location so much, and maybe green screens cost money then to go shoot or create plates. If you're doing that, you might as well put it on a video wall and actually shoot it for real. I guess I don't have the knowledge of it yet, and I don't claim to have, but it's something I'm going to keep a very close eye on over the next, coming months.
Yeah, if you want to share also other thoughts about the COVID situation in the film industry.
Yeah.
I read a couple of questions about this.
Well, we're currently, because we're on lockdown here in the UK, the same as you guys, I've gotten involved in the current discussions with our union and creating a safety document that we're going to submit to the British Film Council. And I think then that gets submitted or applied to a document that will be discussed with producers and other you know, lighting companies. And I think I'm hoping it's a collaborative document that can then prove a safe way of working within the film industry, to put us back to work, that will satisfy not only the Hollywood studios, but some of the smaller productions and the insurance companies. And I think there's a meeting tonight at 8 p.m. That we're going to go through the whole document from an electrical lighting branch point of view. And we've also done our own document that we're going to submit. And it's just health and safety guidelines. They're suggestive. It's not law, but it's just a way of us proving that we're safe, or we can operate within a safe environment, still achieve the end result, to satisfy the insurance companies, so we can all slowly start going back to work. And I think it's important that some of us play a part in that. So I've actively been trying to do that over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So watch this space. There's a lot of people involved in this. There's so many ideas at the moment that it's just the British Film Commission for Inward Spends in the UK are trying to get the best of all the ideas to put them into a document to submit, you know, to prove our safety, and at least encourage insurance companies to start getting us back to work. As far as I'm aware, that's the role model of it.
Okay. I'm scrapping question. I pinned one epic shout out on you. You received a lot of shout out today. Ready yourself, man.
I paid them all to do it. I phoned them up, said, listen, I'll pay you, I'll buy you a beer. You know, just say something nice for once. Just once.
We are near the 2 hours of live. So guys,
I'm drying up now. I need a beer. I'd like to
if
have
you
a beer
want to
with
drop
everyone
in stuff,
I said I'd like to have a beer with everyone that tuned in, and you know, thank everyone for coming along. Hopefully we've inspired some new talent to keep going. We need new talent. We need them to do it the right way. If I can advise anyone, feel free to email or send me a message on Insta. I'll try and get round to it. I seem to have a bit of time on my hands at the moment. Let's see.
We need to meet in some movies when everything is normal. We need to meet.
Well, we were in Venice just a few weeks ago. Don't tell anyone.
I remember. Next time.
Next time, definitely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, man. I think we talked a lot. Really, I really appreciated this epic live.
It's been fun looking back at the old pictures, you know, and I haven't seen the comments. I'm going to have a little look afterwards.
Yeah, I'm saving everything because we are planning to upload all those stuff on the YouTube channel. So people on YouTube is more relaxed to stay click and put
they can fast forward the boring bits.
Here for me is every time is hard because I have your face and a lot of comments on your face. So I have to scrap.
It's better to cover this. I have lockdown hair at the moment. It's gone grey and very long. There's nothing I can do about it. I haven't had it cut in weeks and weeks.
But I want to thank you again so much from me, from Rosella in the other room with the kid. So we are so happy of this live, and thanks again, man.
Stay in touch. It's been a pleasure. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks to everyone for watching. We was really many people.
I just say thanks to all our lovely NHS and key workers that are helping us out at the moment through this COVID battle. They're the real heroes, not the filmmakers, the hospital workers and the NHS and the key workers that are out there for us all. So thanks to them.
Thanks so much again.
Take care. See you, man. Bye-bye.
Hello to everyone. Hello.